Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The 7 Potential Digital Game Changers for Law Firms. I'm Alex Ludwig, Senior Account Executive here at Firmidable and the moderator for today's presentation. First, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your day to come learn with us. Before I let Nathan get us started, I'd like to address a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. Number one, this webinar will be recorded and you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. Feel free to share that with your staff or anyone that you think may benefit from it. Secondly, on this next slide, we've taken a screenshot of the attendee interface. You should see something like this on your screen. You can submit text questions and comments throughout the presentation simply by typing your question into the questions pane of the control panel. You can send these questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect them and address any of them during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And finally, I'll launch a quick poll. These will be your opportunity to interact with us today, and we'll have another one coming later. But just in a second, you should be seeing one popping up with that question that you were just seeing, but you'll be able to select some answers. So our poll question is, what is your biggest concern today regarding your law firm's digital strategy? You can start voting at any time. I'll give you a few moments to select what best identifies your firm. You either don't have a digital strategy, you find it hard to understand, you think you should actually be getting more leads or cases from your digital strategy. You think your competition is more digitally savvy than you are, or something else entirely. And if something else entirely, feel free to submit that comment to us in the questions pane, or just email us after, and that's something we can maybe address with you. But it looks like everybody just about answered, so I'll close the poll and share the results with you. It looks like 38% of you said we think the competition is more digitally savvy. Some of you think you should be getting more leads or cases. A quarter of you just don't understand what it means at all, or even some of you don't have the digital strategy. So a good mix we see there. But with that, I'll let Nathan go ahead and get us started with everything we'll be covering and how this factors into everything we'll be looking at today.
All right, thank you, Alex, and thank you everyone for participating in that poll. That helps us understand our audience today just a little bit better. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, since we are live with an audience stretching from the East Coast all the way to Hawaii. Before I jump into today's content, I'd like to take just 1 minute for a bit of introduction. Recently, I read a book, The Business of Expertise, and I've been giving a lot of thought to what does it mean to be a specialist or an expert. You can be very smart, very skilled, very competent, but not be an expert. For example, I love my general practitioner doctor. He's fantastic, but he's not a specialist in any one particular area. If I needed brain surgery, he's not the doctor I want. The book makes the case that expertise comes from when you not only have talent and dedication, but you also have the opportunity to focus on something narrow. It's the narrowness of the focus that allows you the opportunity to see patterns. It's in noticing how things are alike and noticing how things are different that makes you an expert over and over again when you have that opportunity. Now in our 26th year, Firmidable is a highly analytical agency that does nothing but study how people choose their lawyers and law firms. So what we're going to do today is look at some important internet practices and trends, but we're going to put them through our very special filter. How do law firms use this information to get more and better cases? And of course, more revenue. Today's webcast is the 7 potential digital game changers for law firms. If you heard our last webcast, it was all about the things you need to do right now in your digital marketing. This time, well, we know Silicon Valley is constantly evolving, so this time we're going to look at some things on the horizon, but also some game changers you can do right now, because in legal marketing, or at least very good legal marketing, it's all about results. We can't afford to have an ivory tower lecture today. So some of the things you see today are not quite here yet, but by exposing you to them now, we can have better conversations in the days to come if we all know what to anticipate. So let's get started. Number 1 on our list is the rise of automation. Automation is minimizing human intervention in any undertaking. Automation's not limited to big companies anymore. It's getting people out of the weeds. It's letting machines do work for you, usually better than you can do as a human. One type of automation that you might have heard about is machine learning. If you haven't heard of it, you definitely hear a lot about it when you're in Silicon Valley. Machine learning is an algorithm that evolves over time because it actually has the ability to rewrite itself to become better than when it started. If you're a fan of Star Trek The Next Generation TV series, this sounds a bit like the Borg that eventually start taking over by assimilating everything and everyone around them. Hopefully, we won't get to that point. But let's step back from that far in the future and let's go to the more recent past. Google tested machine learning in a famous experiment. It turned loose a machine learning algorithm on the old Atari video game Breakout. Google did not give the algorithm any instructions or even any tips on how to get the most points in the game. Algorithm, you're on your own. So the ball happened to fall on the paddle. It then bounced back up and it made a chip in the rainbow bars you see at the top, and a point was scored. At first, the algorithm was clumsy, but eventually got better using the paddle. It played it over and over and over again. Kind of like a teenager, except it didn't eat food or make a mess in its room. Okay, so after hundreds of games, one time the ball managed to chip away at enough of the rainbow bars on one side, so the ball made it all the way to the top. And then it bounces like crazy on top of the screen and top of the rainbow bars. Point, 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 point. The points start racking up like crazy. And the algorithm realizes, whoa, that's the way to really score big and fast. So it rewrote itself to always try and break through one side and get to that top of the screen as soon as possible. It figured out how to do this all on its own. It evolved. Okay, now how the heck can this help law firms? Well, to answer that, let's first note that compared to a human being, the machine learning algorithm can analyze more variables than any human can possibly process. It can do a better job of determining what really matters, what's the best way to reach its objectives. In short, it can work faster, smarter, and have more success than most humans. Let's get specific. It could study your website blog, like which posts get opened the most and how much time is spent with each post. Does the reader then move on to take a desired action, like sign up for the email list? Similarly, with your email program, what kinds of emails get opened? Which ones result in a click-through rate from the email to your blog page? Which emails are more likely to be marked as spam? Your page search ads program, that involves an auction-like bidding. When is the best time to bid? When should we pay more? When should we pay less? Which ads get the best results? I think it's apparent why this is exciting. Okay, but before you get too excited, machine learning is one of those things still on the horizon, although not necessarily a distant horizon. This is Gary Ilias, a well-known spokesman for Google. When I was in Silicon Valley, I heard Gary say that Google anticipates a large impact from machine learning, but even Google's going slow and being cautious about adopting it. Why? There's still some big significant bugs still yet to be worked out. It's not something you can use very much yet, but it's definitely coming. Okay, so what can we do now? Well, in paid search, you can use something we call dynamic content, which is also called conditional formatting. Here's an example. Did you ever notice when someone's clicking on a paid search ad from a desktop, the action's called a click? But when you do the same thing from a smartphone, we say tap here. With dynamic content, the paid search ad automatically checks to see what kind of device the visitor's on, and it serves them up an ad using the relevant term, click or tap. Why bother? Well, it's an axiom of marketing that you want to speak to your potential customers or clients in the most relevant language possible. Greater relevancy equals greater conversion of clicks or taps to leads. Here's another one. You can be creative with the conditional formatting variables. For example, studies show that tickets to amusement parks go up when the weather's nice. Flu medicine sales increase when the weather's lousy. More car wrecks occur on icy roads. So you can tie in your digital ad content with a weather-based interface. The future started to arrive. Another thing you can use now is marketing automation tools. We used it, in fact, to send out invitations to our webinar today. It can automate many tasks related to your emails, your social media, or your website. Here's an example. If someone visits your blog and signs up for your email list, you'd automatically send them a thank you email. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? But then maybe 2 weeks later, they get an invitation to download a white paper. Maybe a month later, they get an invitation for a free consultation. you can schedule out every interaction for a year or more. And depending on what the potential client does in response, the marketing automation tool, it will change what it's going to do in response. That's what you're seeing on the screen now, a sample flow chart. The point being that instead of a human having to monitor or calendar any of these tasks, they automatically happen. So let's go on now to number 2. Our second game changer is mobile first. Now, you probably heard already and think you know a lot about it, and maybe you do, because it's definitely a majority of website traffic is now being done from smartphones. But there's some things evolving, so hang with me. What's coming out of Silicon Valley? In fact, I've got a slide coming up. I had to change it just about a week ago because there's new evolving things. All right. At the heart of this section is the fact that Google is planning on changing the source of its indexing. That's what we call it when Google sends a little bot to figure out what a website page is all about. Now, it's always been that they send those bots to the website pages on a desktop, and if you have a desktop and a mobile site, it went to the desktop versions. Google indexes based on desktop versions, but that's about to change. Here's Gary Ilyas again. I heard him say that even though Google was still focusing its indexing on desktops for now, frankly, they're already starting to care less and less about it compared to mobile searches. And that they would definitely switch its indexing over to mobile maybe in a couple of years. Well, you know what? Here's an update. Since we started working on this very recently, Gary said maybe they're going to start this within a few weeks. Now, I want to be clear. They're not going to switch over everything in a few weeks, but they are starting. Whether you're in that first batch or the 1,000th batch or the 100,000th batch, we don't know, but this is coming. Okay, so what does it mean to you? Well, most of you already have a mobile-friendly site, although not everyone. I visited the site of some of our audience today, and there was at least one very large firm with a lot of attorneys, and they don't have a mobile version of its site at all. That means when Google makes this switch for you, it's like you're dead to Google, like you don't exist. Those little bots, they can't even find you. So poof, you're gone in the search results. Okay, what about the rest of you? Well, actually being mobile friendly is not necessarily enough. You need to look at whether you have a separate mobile site or a responsive site. Now, in the beginning of mobile, your only option for mobile was to build a separate mobile site. That was fine for many years, but Google's starting to get tired of that. Why? Well, all those indexing little bots that we mentioned, they were having to check every page on two sites, the desktop site and the mobile site. They had to do this for every single website owner, and billions and billions and billions of pages times two. Well, that's a lot more pages. So Google started encouraging all of us to switch to responsive sites. In that case, you have one site and it responds to the device that it's on, sort of like water in a vessel. It reshapes itself. So if you cut the number of the entire internet web pages in half, that will save Google a lot of time. So how do you check what you have? Well, you look in the URL from your mobile device. See that red box in the upper right? You see how the word mobile's in the URL? That means that this is not a responsive site. So one of the problems with two separate sites is that people often put content on one, but not the other. In fact, because smartphone screens were smaller, law firms often put some content on their desktop sites, but not on their mobile sites. Well, if you did that, Google is not going to have that content show up in their search results anymore. All right, let's move on to number 3. Game changer number 3 is that SEO is not enough. I'm not going to talk about this section very long because I did talk about it some in my last webcast, but I do want to keep it on your radar. For digital, SEO is like mom and apple pie. But as the digital landscape evolved, there's more recognition that SEO, or an organic strategy as we also call it, that may not be enough for your needs. That can be frustrating because you're spending money on SEO and now somebody's suggesting you need to do something else in addition to SEO. Unfortunately, Google doesn't care if you're frustrated. Google cares more about its own needs than what you or I want. The point is, you have to have a full digital strategy conversation. Part of that conversation may involve digital strategies other than Google, like Facebook. We're going to talk about that in another section coming up in a few minutes. Let's stay on this and let me show you the problem. Here's a Google search for car wreck lawyer. It's done on a smartphone. Remember, these days, more than half digital activity is coming from a mobile device, so that's why we're going to focus on a smartphone for this example. So here's the initial results. I don't know well how you can read it, but it's all paid search ads. Okay, let's pretend we're scrolling down to the next page. Now we see something they call the local 3-pack. That's the popular Google Map feature that shows up right in the middle of the search results. All right, let's scroll some more. Now we're on page 3, and we finally come to the first of the organic listings. So think about this. If you have an awesome SEO program, the kind we do here at Firmidable, well, we can get you to #1 in the keywords you compete on, but you might still be on the 3rd page, even though you're #1 organically. Yowzers. All right, let me remind you, our section theme is SEO may not be enough. You've got 2 other potential challenges. I've interviewed moms of kids with special needs who had no idea there was even such a thing as special education law attorneys. Or there may be workers paid as an independent contractor who have no idea they should be paid as employees. Because they're not questioning this, they'd have no reason to go search for an employment lawyer. Another problem, you won't be found through a search engine if a searcher already has a law firm in mind. Car wreck victims don't go, I wonder if there's a personal injury attorney in my town. Like, seriously? They're much more likely to go straight to the website of the one they want instead of searching by category. So if they're not searching to find a law firm, you need a fuller digital strategy. We've got some more on this coming up. But let me add, not just a full digital strategy, but a full marketing strategy that includes non-digital channels. We live in a multi-channel world, even watching one screen with another screen in your lap. So the most powerful way to create a memorable brand where they search for you by name instead of by category, it's to do a marketing that's not only digital. We spent some time on this in our last webcast, so I'm going to move on. Email me if you'd like a copy of that webcast or if you'd like some ideas on this topic. Because now it's time for number 4. I've made a few references to non-search engine digital strategies. That's what we're going to talk about now, and in particular, Facebook ads. I want to underscore that I'm not talking about social media posts, but lead gen ads on Facebook and how they may have changed since you might have tried them last time. But first, let's see what Alex is up to.
All right, well, before we get into Facebook, we want to kind of see where you are in terms of Facebook, how much you might know about it, or if you've used it before in the past. So I'm launching a poll right now, same as the last time, except this time your question is, what is your opinion about Facebook ads for lead generation? So again, this is Facebook ads and ad campaigns, not the actual social media posts. So take a moment, select what best fits your firm. Our choices are they work great, they might work, but my potential clients are not on Facebook. They don't work very well, or you don't really know, or you don't care. You just want your staff to quit checking it while they're at work. So a little tongue in cheek there, but obviously if you don't know or care, that would be a nice little answer for you. So it looks like just about everybody's in. So I'm gonna give you just one more moment to get a couple more. And I'm gonna close that and share you with the results. It looks like most of you honestly don't particularly know anything about them, and a good bit of you think your clients in particular aren't on Facebook. So I'll give it back to Nathan, let him kind of go through what we're seeing with it.
So we've got slides about the poll items, except one about whether your clients are on Facebook. While nothing in life is 100%, almost everything and almost everyone these days is on Facebook. Now it's losing a little popularity with some of the youngest people, but they're probably too young to be your audience. Even if you're a B2B law firm, business leaders are on Facebook. I know I'm involved in the New Orleans community, and most of the business leaders I know are on Facebook. I'm going to touch on LinkedIn in a few minutes, but even if you're reaching for business people, you should at least explore Facebook ads. Okay, but as you've probably read on this slide by now, even if you've tried Facebook ads in the past, You need to forget about that experience because they're dramatically performing better now than they were even a single year ago. All right, paid search ads are served up based on somebody inputting certain words in a search engine. You're catching them at just the right moment. Social media ads like Facebook are based on the people themselves. So it's obvious why that would be very powerful. But in terms of timing, you're likely not catching them when they're looking for a lawyer. You're probably catching them when they're looking for pictures of friends or looking at cute cat videos. They don't necessarily want to talk about nursing home abuse right now, okay? Your interest could be the farthest thing from their minds. All right, I told you that Facebook ads are dramatically better than a year ago. That's in terms of the sophistication that Facebook has developed in terms of understanding its audience and giving you amazing tools if you know what you're doing. This gives you a deeper dive in terms of audience, deeper than the history of advertising has ever allowed us before. I'm not just talking about demographics like age and income. We mean lifestyle, like hobbies and the magazines they're reading, their political beliefs, what influencers they follow, and more. And what's really powerful is if you study your current clients with Facebook's data, you can then build a lookalike audience of Facebook users who are very similar to them, and they're likely also to be a potential client for you. It's a lot like studying one set of an identical twins. From that, we could probably predict a lot of things about the other twin who we've never met. But while that may sound amazing, according to many small business trends, 62% of businesses think Facebook ads don't work. Why is that? They're treating Facebook ads like they're paid search ads, but in fact, they're very different. For paid search ads, it is like somebody's, for example, searching for a solution. And it's if they are searching for a solution, like how do I find an employment law attorney or researching the topic of wrongful termination, it's okay to suggest that they talk to you. That's just being helpful. But in social media, we see too many lawyers coming on too strong, too fast, like the creepy salesman saying, "What do I have to do to put you in this car today?" You may say, "Bug off, dude. I just want to look around." Actually, it's worse than that. It's like the creepy car sales guy comes and goes to your house and he knocks on your front door while you're visiting with your friends and he asks if you'd like to buy a car. It's like, dude, get lost. I see this over and over with law firms and their social media ads, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or even Instagram. "Hey, you want to talk to an employment lawyer?" No, dude, get lost. So what we need is a more nuanced approach. And for that, we turn to the sales or marketing funnel. Now, this was classic back in my MBA classes, but I have a feeling in law school, not so much. Well, pay attention, class, because this can really help you. We're going to break this down in a minute, but let's overview first. We start at the top with a group of people who've never even heard of you. And once we hit success there, we're going to move on to where they're willing to consider your firm for certain things. And then they move to conversion, although I prefer to call it conversion ready to emphasize they haven't converted yet. We just think they're kind of primed to do so. And once they do that, the goal is to get them to become a lead. That's the goal. A lead is somebody who says, "Sure, I'll talk to you." And from there, you need to convert that lead into a potential client or case. All right, let's break it down. Awareness. They may not have heard of the firm or in some case the legal category, like those moms who have no idea there's such thing as special education law, or adult children who've never considered parents in nursing homes might be subject to abuse, or let alone that there's lawyers who help families like that. Okay, these ads are cheaper. You don't want to pay a lot per ad. You're just paying for impressions or eyeballs. But it's an overall larger portion of your Facebook ad budget because you have to cast a wide net at this point. Now, if we're successful in this awareness stage, we get them to watch a video or interact with a promoted content post. And then if so, we're moving them into the consideration stage of our funnel. Now, we don't presume they're ready to talk to you yet. They've just shown some willingness to listen or read or watch other information that you might be ready to present at this stage. Now, these are pricier ads. Instead of impressions, you're not going to pay for clicks. But while the ads cost more each, it's also a smaller portion of your total ad budget because there's less people in the funnel at this stage. Now, some of these are going to take further actions, some really good actions, like they're going to move to your website and visit it. That definitely shows a higher level of interest and is a very good sign. So once they're on your website, maybe you can get them to sign up for your email list. That gives you permission to regularly reach out to them with quality content so you can stay top of mind. At the site, you can also cookie them so that later they get remarketing ads. So there you have a frequency strategy, which is a classic advertising technique. Now, when they're at this stage of being conversion ready, you're paying the most per ad, but it's the smallest portion of your total budget because you can see how narrow the funnel is at this point. And finally, you hope they say, yes, I'd like to talk to someone, which means they're a lead. All right, I should note that funnels are longer than others. It depends on your type of law and how quickly your target will as a whole take to convert. For example, Social Security disability clients are relatively short funnel, but I've talked to a lawyer the other day who specializes in the construction industry, where switching lawyers is a high hurdle. So that can be a very long funnel. It can still work because people do switch, but it can take longer. Hey, remember our marketing automation tool from earlier? Here's a great way to use it. When someone engages with you, like reading and liking your posts on Facebook, they get points. And as they accumulate enough points, they move through your funnel. So this system automatically keeps track of them and starts offering them different kinds of content to keep pulling them through your funnel. And here's another term we heard earlier. Facebook is a form of machine learning. What do I mean? Facebook learns and gets more and more effective as it gets more experience for you. And by that, I really mean it gets more data. So, because of that, even if you have no plans to run a Facebook ad, start collecting the data now by putting a Facebook pixel on your website so that you can start collecting the data on what kind of people visit your website. You want a big pool to create that lookalike audience we talked about. Remember, in machine learning, the more data, the better the algorithm will do. Now, before all of Firmidable's digital clients today start calling and saying, wait, are you doing this for me? Yes, this is something we do for all our website clients. If you're not one of those, you can ask whoever's handling your website SEO, or you can call us, of course. All right, what about LinkedIn, which is also a social network? As I said a while ago, most of these people are also on Facebook, so don't make the mistake of thinking LinkedIn is professionals and Facebook is for moms. That's simply wrong. LinkedIn is at the current time not showing to be quite as effective or cost efficient as Facebook, but it depends on your type of law. This could be worthwhile to you if you're in a business to business category. All right, let's move to number 5. Online reviews are growing in importance. So I'm going to let you read this review yourself. You can just read a couple of sentences before you react, oh my goodness, why would anybody ever call this attorney? I know I wouldn't. Now that's scary enough, right? But it gets even scarier because not only might that turn people off, it turns off Google too. Google's starting to look at those reviews and say, wait a minute, it's our job to match up people with really quality sites. This doesn't seem like a quality law firm. So they're starting to hurt your ranking results when you have a terrible review. All right, there's more. Voice search. This is a thing that's a little bit on the horizon. It's being experimented with, but sometimes the Alexa or the Siri and all those kind of voice devices, they will say out loud, oh, here's a law firm. It gets 2 stars. Are you interested in that one? Not really. Do you have any that have 4 stars? I know I'd react that way because no matter how good is your digital strategy, no matter how wonderful a job Firmidable might be doing for you, bad reviews hurt conversion. There's nothing digitally that anyone can do if they think you're terrible. So you have to address this. All right, let's talk about a few ways to do this. And in fact, now not to do it. Don't get desperate. Faking reviews is against federal law. And if you get thinking you're going to get clever and maybe, hey, they get the settlement check and you say, do you want to go over right now? And we got a computer over in the corner, and you can like type a review for us right now. They're going to figure out all those reviews are coming from the same IP address. You're going to get busted. Don't do that. What you do want to do is reply to every negative review. Studies show that if you ignore it, it's kind of like political ads. When you don't respond, people assume it must be true. And by the way, if you do a really good job in that response, you might be able to talk them into taking that 1 star and making it 3 or 4. That would really help. But by the way, we also encourage you to apply to positive reviews. I know I ghost wrote some replies for a client of mine, and they got a lot of good reviews, I'm happy to say. But those were also opportunities. We thanked them for that positive review, and it was a chance to restate our mission. Thank you, Susan. It's nice reviews like this that make us double down on our mission to help disability clients every day. That's what we do here, at our law firm. Something like that. It's a way to pat yourself on the back without being too tacky about it. All right, number 6, local search. It's its own thing. So to give you an example of what local search is, let me give you kind of a fun experiment. Pull out your smartphone right now, launch Google, and type the word pizza, just that one word. Mostly you're going to get a list of websites for pizza restaurants. But wait a minute, think about it. You only typed the one word pizza. Yet Google did not give you a definition of pizza. It didn't give you a recipe for pizza. It anticipated your search intent was to find a local pizza restaurant. Now go home tonight and repeat the experiment. One word pizza in your smartphone Google browser. You're going to get a list of restaurants, but note that the list is changed. Why is that? Same word, same search engine, same device, same you. The only thing that changed was your location. That's because Google is assuming your intent and it's using the local search algorithm. Of course, Google has made fortunes off search, and they spend countless amount of time thinking about how people search. It wants people to be happy with the search results, so they'd never consider switching to another search engine. So Google has categorized people searching into 3 big categories. First is transactional. People want to do something, like they want to call an injury lawyer. They want to start a workers' comp claim. They want to start appealing a long-term disability insurance denial. The second type of search intent is informational. They don't want to talk to anybody. They just want some information, like what to do after a car wreck. How much does a lawyer cost? Maybe they want to talk to a spouse. Maybe they want to think about it. The third reason that somebody might use a search engine is navigational. Now, in this case, they don't need to discover anything. They know where they want to go. They just need to get there. So in the example on our screen, they're typing in a particular attorney's name. They just want Google to help them find that attorney's website and take them straight there. But what's really interesting to me is even when people know the exact URL, let's say like Amazon.com, people still go to Google and type literally Amazon.com, even though they don't need Google in order to do that. But they do. So the short terms for our 3 types of intent are they want to do something, they want to know something, or they want to go somewhere. Hey, remember our pizza experiment? Rightly or wrongly, Google pretty much anticipates every time someone types pizza, they're doing a transactional search because they want to do something, which is to buy pizza at some place. If you're legal, if you type in a type of lawyer like injury lawyer, Google assumes you want to talk to one, which is a transactional type of search, and it's going to assume this is a local search like pizza is. So your brick and mortar location is going to be a factor. You're going to get a listings of locally based law firms. By the way, not every transaction is local. For example, if you want to buy a book, Amazon will probably pop up. They don't have a bricks and mortar location nearby. But on the other hand, for law firms, Google does assume you want someone local. Now, if you type in an informational question, like you're in research mode, like what to do after an auto accident, you're not necessarily saying you want to talk to a lawyer yet, so Google's not going to give you that list of local law firms. We did that at Firmidable the other morning, and what we saw everywhere on what to do after a car wreck, we saw national insurance companies like Allstate. Even though law firms are writing tens of thousands of pages across the country about what to do after a car wreck, That wasn't what was popping up. In fact, the first time we could find a legal listing when we scrolled all the way to the bottom of page 1, it was a legal vendor, a national player in legal, but not even a law firm there. Okay, so what's going on? This is all showing you that Google has two types of algorithm. It's regular algorithm, but also a local search algorithm when it thinks that local search is more appropriate. So what do you need to do with your SEO strategy now that you know this? Well, first let's start with what you should not do, which is to keyword stuff. I mean that old law firm website trick of listing a bunch of cities in your footer, or similarly having a page which says the name of a city over and over again in some stilted, unnatural way of writing. This used to be an okay SEO technique, but it was actually a form of trickery. So Google will actually ding you now for if you do this. It'll negatively affect your ranking. Now, before I start with the techniques on the solution side, let's define the problem a little better. Right now, I'm thinking of an intellectual property attorney I know in New Orleans. That's where I live. She's probably the best known attorney in the state, even though her office is here in New Orleans. She may be the number one attorney in the field in New Orleans and even in the state, but in Shreveport, which is the other end of the state, while she may do more work there than anybody else, she's not located there. So she's going to have a challenge when it comes to local search. She needs a local search strategy because she's simply not local. Here's another challenge. This is the local 3-pack, a map feature that I'm sure you've seen before. Google creates this and shows it in its feed. Because it's very eye-catching, it's very popular. But the problem is, for you to show up on this map, you have to have a brick and mortar location in the map area. One of my New Orleans clients actually ranks #1 organically, which is awesome, but we can't get him to show up on this map if he doesn't have an office in the area. He doesn't. So what's he going to do? Well, hang on a minute more. Before I get to solution mode, I want to talk to all of you that are right now saying, too bad about them, but that's not my problem. My office is in the geo area I care about. So why do I need to care about local search? Well, you might want to pay attention if you have powerful competition from out of town. Let me use Starbucks as an example. How could a local single location coffee shop ever compete in ranking with a powerhouse like Starbucks? Well, actually it can, because Starbucks doesn't care about a local strategy and probably couldn't pull it off even if it did care. In terms of legal, this might be like Morgan & Morgan, which is almost a national personal injury firm. Can you compete against them if you're local and they're a big national firm? Actually, you can. But let me be clear, in the case of Starbucks and Morgan & Morgan, they are local, they have local offices, but they're also national. So these are our two scenarios. When you're not local, but you care about an area where you're not, and you are local, but the big competitor is muscling in on your territory. What do you do? Well, the first easy answer would be to run digital ads. On the next few slides, I'm going to tell you an organic strategy, but even successful SEO can take up to a year to get you at the rankings which you want in the city where you have no physical location. On the other hand, paid search ads can put you at the top of the rankings almost immediately. And it's more interesting than that. A paid search campaign gives your digital team data that they can use to have a more effective SEO campaign later. That's not machine learning, that's human learning. But expert humans also get better the more data you give them. I heard this in a meeting in Silicon Valley, so this is not just about legal, but we definitely do hear this in legal. Too many advertisers say, oh, let's try SEO first, and we can always add on paid search later if we're happy. In many cases, you should reverse that thinking. All right, I promised you an SEO strategy as well, and let's do it. In Google's eyes, backlinks to your website are like endorsements. Someone's vouching for you. Now, in regular SEO, the more powerful the source of that link, say the Huffington Post or the American Bar Association, the better. We call that domain authority. So a little league team or a local church or synagogue, they would have an incredibly low domain authority. Nobody would care about links from such dinky little website like theirs, right? Well, in local search, we do. In its local search algorithm, Google understands that Starbucks and the national legal chains, they don't get a link from local community groups. Those links are based on relationships in your community. So if you're getting those links from those little local groups, you must be local. So when it's a transactional search, these local links can help you, and Google can then have more information to decide to rank you higher. All right, I'm not going to read to you all these next slides. You can read them yourself, or you can get a copy of the deck from Alex or me. But being involved in your community can be an effective SEO strategy. But I want to be real clear on one thing. A lot of times, especially when you're dealing with these little organizations like your local church or, running club or something like that, they might agree to what you're asking, but they don't know how to do it. And so if they just put the text, we meet every Thursday, in the boardroom of this law office, text is not a link. They have to give you a link. So somebody digitally savvy, like somebody on our team or maybe somebody who works for you, will have to walk them through. This is exactly what you do step by step, because I've seen too often it not come together. Here's another local strategy. Take a look at these ideas. Some of these may seem crazy to you. Why would we put local restaurant reviews on a law firm website? Now, I'm not saying you put the barbecue reviews on front and center on your homepage, but we are saying that in local search, your site's local content can help outweigh the topical relevancy for legal content, at least for that aspect of your digital strategy. Now, I know at our agency, we really prefer it when you combine the two. Let's say like an interview with your local city council member about why some particular intersection seems to have the worst record for car wrecks. But you don't have to do that. You can do something funny and provocative, let's say about your local sports team. The key is that you need to get those backlinks, with Google sees as a sign of community endorsement. In order to do that effectively, no matter how funny your blog post is about your sports team, you're going to have to promote the content with a modest promotional budget, or you'll never have enough people find that content in order to want to link to it. Okay, as to the structure of your website, and this is in particular for those who have a geo goal but not a physical office location, well, you're going to want to set up part of your site almost like a microsite. It's not technically one, but it's like it, where it's its own section with its own content. You can even have duplicate pages throughout your site. Now, let me be clear. A duplicate page might be, how do I appeal a workers' comp denial? And you might have that for Detroit and for Lansing, Michigan, and for Grand Rapids. You can't have the same exact words. Google will ding you if you repeat the content word for word and even just change out the city names. You're going to have to be more original in that, but you can have similar pages where the person in Lansing looks all around and they find the content they want because they're being influenced to your site by your local strategy. All right, number 7, increasing your conversion. This is not about ranking higher. This is not about getting more clicks. This is about, once they're on your site, that you want to get more of that traffic to decide to sign up with you. We talked about this some in our last webcast, but I've got some new information, some new ideas for you. You might want to try different headlines. Headlines draw 80% of the conversion, so try other headlines to see if you can improve on what you're getting now. You might try different copy. Lawyers love to write real legally, real unemotionally about maybe what you need. Try writing more about what they want on a more of an emotional level, because that's how people react. You can still be professional and do this. That's what we do all the time here, is try and stay professional, but reach out to the human part of our audience. You could think of every page as a landing page. The landing pages and things like paid search are all designed for conversion. You could add social proof, like that you belong to a particular association, a National Legal Association, or you're a super lawyer, something like that. Those pop-ups, They might seem real annoying, but the reason people still use them is they still work. They help you convert your traffic into leads. But maybe you could give them some personality, make them some fun where they're a little less annoying and they work even better for you. One last thing I want to talk about is about the speed of your site. This is probably not something that you're paying much attention to, but studies show that if your pages take too long to load, and that's probably due to technical reasons, people will get impatient and they're going to bounce out of there, especially if they're on a smartphone. So somebody needs to be watching how is this site designed, and are the things we can do to make all of those pages load faster. All right. I'm going to recap in just a second our game changers, and I think we have a little time left for some questions because they're live. We never know what to expect, so you're not going to want to miss that. But before we do that, I want to make you an offer. In a webcast like this, we can only talk about big, powerful ideas, but the most powerful ideas are the strategies that are built just for you. Alex and I and the team invite you to have a personal conversation about your digital or overall marketing strategy with us. We'd be honored to talk to you, and the more data we have, just like machine learning, the better we're going to do for you. All right, let's recap our list. We talked about the rise of automation, some tools now, some later. We talked about mobile first and how you need to make sure you have a mobile site and start moving toward a responsive site if you don't have one already. That SEO is not enough. You need a full digital and marketing strategy. That you need to consider Facebook ads and that they are better than they were, but you need a funnel strategy. The importance of online reviews and how you'd better not ignore them. Local search, depending on your situation, this could be an area where you should spend some time and maybe budget some of your budget, because this could be a really important strategy. And you want to spend the time to increase that traffic into conversion. All right, Alex, how are we doing on time? Can we have time for some questions?
Yeah, we're going to do a couple questions that came through. If I don't get to your question, I'll make sure to email you separately and get those questions answered for you. And of course, if you come up with more questions or after maybe your team reviews this presentation, they have questions, feel free to reach out to me or Nathan at any time. But our first question here, Nathan, is going to be, I noticed that Firmidable's webcasts have been about internet strategies. Are you getting away from TV?
All right, well, thank you for that question. No, we're definitely not getting away from TV. The reason most of our webcasts have been about digital is we find that that's what the attorneys are most mystified by. And so it is a very complex area, as I think you saw today. But TV is actually doing great. In fact, in some ways, it's having a renaissance. There's a lot of law firms who've gone to digital-only strategies. Some of our clients have done that. And because of that, there's actually, in a lot of places, less attorneys on TV than there used to be. TV is still a really powerful medium for reaching out to people who aren't even thinking about you, creating that brand awareness, and convincing them that you're somehow different than all the other law firms in town. So the really sweet spot is when you do have that screen-to-screen strategy, because they're often looking at the TV with that smartphone in their lap.
All right, and question number 2, how much would it cost to update my website? It isn't mobile.
All right, never heard that before. Somebody wants to know how much something costs. Tell you what, to give you a really good answer, we just need to ask you a few questions first. You might be able to imagine that a law firm, let's say they're in personal injury in Los Angeles, they just really need to invest more in their site than maybe a law firm that's Social Security only in Terre Haute, right? So let me ask you a few questions. We'll guide you, and then based on some assumptions, we can try and ballpark some figures for you. But let's do that one-on-one.
All right, and with that, any other questions we have, we'll answer separately, just so we don't run out of time here. So with that, I just want to kind of thank everyone for attending today's webinar. The name of it again, 7 Potential Digital Game Changers for Law Firms. If you have any other questions, contact us directly. We'll be willing to talk to you or send you the deck. Once you leave today's webinar, you'll also receive a survey on the presentation. It should pop up immediately after you leave. We would greatly appreciate you complete that and provide your feedback. It's definitely valuable to us and lets us know additional ways we might be able to provide value or improve some things that we're doing for you. You'll also, again, receive a follow-up email with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. So again, on the behalf of the entire team here at Firmidable, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.